One of the challenges of this movie in terms of design was it needed to be consistent with the timeline and the reality of what Star Trek did as a series.
Star Trek kind of created its own visual language and design.
It's amazing to me how we got away with what we did. We were on a very, very skimpy budget. And in a way that served us well because we did not have money for great sets. So the stories really had to rely very strongly on the people.
We wanted to pay tribute to the original TV series.
On the other hand, it needed to look like something that for today's audience, you know, futuristic and cool.
We wanted to take it to the next level. This is a big budget movie and not a TV show. The movie definitely has this kind of future retro feel to it. The first part of the movie, our Kelvin spaceship sequence, refers to sci-fi of like the late 30s, like the Buster Crabbe stuff, and also like the early 50s things like The Day the Earth Stood Still. That's all kind of mashed together to create this look that's 30 years before our main story.
The whole feeling for this scene is kind of very tense and it's about to get worse. The idea is that a very unusual thing just happened. You guys have picked up that there is some kind of anomaly, some ship that has not been seen before.
What is the closest match of registry?
Nothing even close, sir.
The Kelvin is the first big interior spaceship bridge that we see, and it's the most that you would look at and go, oh yeah, this must be the new Star Trek movie, because it kind of looks like what you've seen before. The Kelvin is the generation before the Enterprise, so this is kind of the ship that's been around for 30 years, and it's not necessarily on its last run, but it's the old model. And we did that on purpose because we wanted the Enterprise to feel very new as compared to the Kelvin. Yeah, it's hard to make something like a spaceship look real, you know? They need to look like they actually kind of work, as opposed to being like cardboard boxes in space.
It's the details that Scott did, like, for example, on the Kelvin. There's little things that you don't even think about, which is there's like handrails all around, which are, you know, it makes sense because, you know, you're in space and you'll get knocked around.
If you look at the set of my ship, it's not the pristine, computerized ship. It's one of those worn down ships which has been out there, and the seats are a little bit worn down. It's that kind of a feel to it, which makes it more real.
We're putting a little history on the chair.
All remaining powers to forward shields. Prepare shuttles for evacuation.
Great.
JJ very much wanted to show the machine rooms and the guts of the spaceships in a hugely dramatic way.
Usually in Star Trek, you see the bridge and you see the corridors, but you really don't have a sense of how big those ships are. So we wanted to find places where we could shoot and really give it scope.
Slow at 10, Kitty. You're racing for your lives, okay?
JJ's a master, and Scott Chambliss did a tremendous job of finding locations that you don't have to build a set. You can leverage off existing locations.
Initially, we scouted the Long Beach generating station for the cell block. Then when we saw a particular area, JJ fell in love with it for the engine room of the Kelvin.
The Kelvin was supposed to be something that had been in service for years, so when we're in the shuttle bay and in the machine rooms, we're actually in the Long Beach power plant that was built in the 1930s, and it's enormous, and it feels like a place that's been around forever, which is how we wanted the Kelvin to feel.
I'm not sure if we're in a submarine, on a tanker, or in deep space, but whatever it is, it's great.
We had all the wear and tear, and the texture that JJ and I love working with, the layers and layers of reality and the dirt and the grime.
And it's like this big, creepy, eerie, echoey, dark, dingy building, and you walk through it and you think, God, I don't even have to act. This is incredible.
There's a big one.
Just keep breathing, you'll be fine.
And the baby too, right?
And the baby too.
All the bridges and stuff that I had to go on between the Kelvin and getting on the shuttle, and just the fire and the water and the sparks and the stuff, and I mean, there was no having to imagine anything.
Let's go, move, move!
The interior of the Kelvin is very submarine-like, and then when we cut to the exterior of the ship, sort of reflects that. It's very worn, very used. It's a lot darker than we're used to seeing ships in Star Trek.
We wanted the Enterprise, even though it's going to be set up like the Enterprise was on the TV show, to feel very new and sexy.
What JJ wanted and what Scott wanted were both the same thing, which was to remain true to the original feel of the Enterprise, but actually make it look cool, functional, but also futuristic, you know, because this is happening 300 years in the future.
Scott Chambliss had a team of designers on the show early on doing versions of the Enterprise. And then we have a guy, Alex Yeager, who really made sure that it was a real 3D thing, it worked, and add details and add functionality to it.
At first, we were kind of all apprehensive because we're like, is this going to be some crazy off-the-wall thing? And it actually turned out to be a very sort of homage, I guess, to the original series Enterprise.
There was a lot of checks and balance. We say, well, should that engine be on, or what does that engine do, or how do these doors open? And we check with the experts. Fortunately, a couple guys in the model department were big experts on it.
When it came to kind of deciding what we're going to do with it, it was definitely a task that weighted heavily on all of us. The Enterprise is the quintessential gemstone of science fiction. There's nothing bigger, more iconic than the Enterprise.
I worked with all the Enterprises in miniature form with the exception of the original one. And this ship got a little bit of stuff from the original Enterprise, from the original TV series, and then we have a lot of the elements that you'd see on the Enterprise A.
JJ had said that he wanted to turn it into a hot rod. And that's what I'm most proud about, actually, was that we did turn the Enterprise into kind of this hot rod thing.
I think the newest part was the nacelles going from a basic cylinder, which they were on the original series, to these sort of swoopy forms. Another thing on this ship, too, was that JJ wanted something to happen to the ship when it goes into warp.
When I was a kid and I watched Star Trek, the ship never really did anything. You know, nothing really moved. And I was sort of determined, actually, to put some moving parts on it, you know.
When the Enterprise goes into warp, we have these panels that pop up on the back of the engine that sort of help us know that this thing's about to go into warp. It's one thing that is a little off-canon in comparison to the original series is our Enterprise is about twice as big as the original Enterprise. But that was done to just increase the grandeur of the Enterprise, and so our Enterprise turned out to be a little more than twice the size of the original Enterprise.
One of the very important shots on the show, obviously, was the first time that you see the Enterprise in its full glory. And JJ said, let the ship break frame. It's like the ship is so big that the camera can't contain the whole thing. So you'll notice the edges of the ship are actually cut off, and it makes it feel bigger and grander.
We did a lot of research on what does an object look like, you know, when it's that big. I remember watching the Queen Mary 2 when it came to San Francisco, and it's all a little khaki wampus all over the place. Each of those panels is just not true.
If you have a ship that's 1,500 feet long, you're never going to get a perfectly straight line down it. Anything that's built by the human hand has slight imperfections.
When a computer draws a straight line, it is absolutely straight. There's no error. And so when you want to look at the Enterprises, each panel just has to have just a little bit of imperfection.
So we spend a lot of time, and we're very meticulous with doing that, because it's easy to look at something and say, you know what, that looks fake, or it doesn't look quite right. And one of the things we pride ourselves on is just putting that extra work in.
You'll see it when light or the sun travels across the surface. It just changes just slightly as it goes from one panel to the next.
As the ship passes us, we're doing this. So the end of the shot is the Enterprise flying upside down away from us.
We talked about this even before we started making the movie, and as you want to connect your people to where they are and the environment that they're in.
So JJ really wanted these ships to look so real that when we push in through a window, we imagine that, okay, now I know what's on the outside and this is on the inside, and they connect.
And the Long Beach power plant actually dictated the fact that we needed to get in the Budweiser location because JJ was so excited about the scale and the size and the scope for the Kelvin.
Beer. Which meant for the Enterprise, we needed to find a clean, spanking new version of the same thing of enormous scale to shoot in.
Well, JJ wanted the engine room to be impressive, like almost like the guts of the Titanic. You know, you'd never really seen the workings of a Starship, and the Enterprise is massive. You know, it's a big, big, big ship, and so the drive for it has to be a significant piece of engineering.
Welcome to the Enterprise machine room.
Because once again, we'd never be able to afford to build a set like that on the stage. And our brilliant location manager, Becky Brake, came back with photographs from the Budweiser plant in Van Nuys.
It's a beautiful factory on the inside. Everything's stainless steel and gorgeous and brand new and working. And it felt like, you know, if we were doing the launching of a new ship, we're better than at a beer factory.
Can you literally pour a glass of beer?
The whole Budweiser plant was the interior of the Enterprise. We had the weapons bay. We had the powerhouse, which was where Scotty gets stuck in the water.
Mr. Scott! Hold on! Hold on!
And then several corridors. And we had the amazing room where the huge vats of beer are stored, which looks fantastic.
It was very, very important that we found a good partner that we could do business with.
The people at Budweiser were incredible to work with. They did nothing but help us. So it was really challenging to shoot in all those locations, and they were really easy to work with. The challenge at Budweiser was that cinematically it was fantastic looking, but the fact that it was a food processing plant, the FDA requirements, the restrictions, the odor, like there were just different challenges there that I had not ever been exposed to before. We were not permitted to even have popcorn in our craft service truck because of the odor.
Like the pipe room where Scotty's going through the orange pipes, that thing was so noisy.
It was the loudest place you could ever imagine. We had to get helicopter headsets just to talk to each other.
It was hot in there and just like wore you down. And where Uhura's monitoring station is, that was kept at like 41 degrees nonstop, so everybody's in parkas.
Ladies, you're on camera.
And there was one tank top station that we had just a little scene in that only 7 people could be up there at any given time because it was such an environmentally sensitive place. But it was worth it. I mean, the scale of that place was phenomenal.
It's another testament to JJ that he wanted to give the Enterprise a sense of reality, a sense of actual space, as something that couldn't be provided by computer graphics or plates or effects. And the Budweiser plant provided that.
Set and go. Energy, ready, and action. And cut. Beautiful. Got it.
The Enterprise bridge was probably, for JJ and I, the most challenging of all of the sets because it comes weighted with so much expectation.
You know where Sulu's going to sit, you know where Chekhov's going to be, but what does that look like?
JJ always said he wanted people who stepped onto the Enterprise bridge set to go, oh my God, we're here on the bridge, it's the Enterprise. And yet at the same time, he wanted it to feel fresh and new. I wanted to refer to the real serious heavyweight designers of that moment in the 60s and 70s, like Pierre Cardin. There was this really strong, kind of sleek modernist vision at play with the best of the designers of that time. We went through 3 different phases of what the Enterprise bridge was going to look like. The first pass I did at it totally embraced the notion of, okay, we'll really make this feel like it's for a new time and a new audience. And it was so much that JJ lost track of the original bridge. It felt like it had gone too far away from its center. So we did another pass edit that brought the whole thing way back down to what was really familiar, but I was kind of bored by it. It was so reverential to me that it was like sort of lifeless, and JJ felt the same way. So what you see on the screen now is a hybrid of the two, and I think by far it's the best solution that we could have come up with anyway. And it took that process of kind of going way out in one direction, pulling way back in the other, and then going, okay, let's mash them together. And the mashing was really challenging because, you know, the 60s cardboard box look and the super swank 2000 whatever look aren't bedfellows necessarily.
Scott Chambliss designed a bridge that was completely in the spirit of the original show and films, but is, for today's audience, something beautiful.
It was literally in the same stage that the Enterprise is, on Paramount, that the Enterprise has been for the last however many years.
The very first day I met Chris Pine, we went and had a look at the construction of the Enterprise. We both stood on board this kind of wooden structure. It was just the bare bones of a wooden Enterprise. Both of us were even in awe of it, just these bits of wood, just going, wow.
Obviously, this is a set that I'd seen every iteration of design and under construction and the models and everything. But that first day walking onto the bridge and seeing all the lights on, it actually had a feeling of, you know, being somewhere special, even though, you know, it's just a movie, just a set, but it felt like, oh wow, this is real, we're actually doing this.
It was epic. It was truly, truly epic. You look around and you're like, I am now on the Enterprise.
I was blown away. It's phenomenal.
I was blown away, and it was like that every day.
It was not lost on me that this is something that is important to a lot of people, including myself. So there's a sense of traveling into cinematic history.
If you had asked us to step onto the bridge and we hadn't written the movie, it would have been a jaw-dropping experience, as close to a waking dream as I think we've ever felt.
It was almost like walking in a church. I didn't want to touch anything.
Yeah,
and people were like, no, go ahead. I was like, no, if I don't want to break anything, sit in the chair. I don't want to sit in the chair. Caller ID.
So many people wanted to sit on the Enterprise bridge captain's chair, and I couldn't sit on it. I just kept walking kind of around it looking, and I never once sat in that chair.
I think everybody had a seat in the captain's chair.
At the end, finally I did, but I waited till I didn't want to jinx it. I was one of the last to sit in the chair. Did you ever sit in the chair?
I didn't sit in the chair. I couldn't sit in the chair.
What's great about Mr. Shatner is that he is a classically trained actor. He's got wonderful posture. There's kind of a way that he moves that is almost balletic. And there's a way that he moves to the captain's chair that is very authoritative and almost balletic. And I talked to JJ about the first time that I take over as captain to kind of get in the classic Shatner cadence, just to cue the audience in. Maneuvering thrusters, Mr. Sulu. Take us out.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The Narada is a totally different case from all of these other ships because even though the Romulans are part of the Star Trek story, this particular character, Nero, and this ship don't exist in the canon, so we got to start fresh from that.
It starts off as a kind of a blue-collar Romulan mining ship, and during the journey becomes something, you know, a lot more terrifying.
The Romulans, they're much more emotionally based and very violent, and so it started occurring to me that it might make sense for the Narada to be very much more like an organism as opposed to a scientific industrial product. And from that, the first thought I had was the architecture of Gaudi, who himself was completely influenced by, you know, the skeleton and the bones and all that stuff.
7-mile-long ship, massive ship, and you see the artwork and you say, okay, we have to build this. We've never built anything anywhere near that size.
So here you can see the Enterprise, 2,500 feet long, and compared to the Kelvin, which is 1,500 feet long. And then even Spock's ship, which is only 178 feet. And then compared to the Narada, which is 30,737.
It's just a massive model, you know, it is absolutely huge, and we have the best model builders in the world, you know. Those guys, you know, took on that challenge.
When we build things in computers, they have to be one-to-one scale for you to get a connection to how big or how small the thing is.
So it is actually physically in units 7 miles long in the computer.
It's kind of like drawing on paper. So if I was drawing a picture of you and I drew it about this big, you would only get so much information. But if I drew you the size that you are, you would get everything, all the information that was actually there. It's why it's imperative to make things at one-to-one scale.
You got to put enough detail in there to sell the idea of how big the thing is.
And that's what sells good CG from bad CG, in my opinion. It's always scale. If it doesn't look big and it's supposed to be big, I want my money back.
Literally, a frame of the Narada might take 24 hours to generate, you know. And you look at the number of shots in the movie, it's just it's a massive task.
Scott Chambliss understands critically how much set is an extension of character. And the Narada said so much just in its physical presence about who Nero is. And when you walk onto that set and you feel the kind of dankness and the water on the floor, and you get an immediate sense of what has been going on in Nero's head for so long.
Answer my question. No, you answer for the genocide you just committed on a peaceful...
I prevented genocide!
Well, let's get one thing straight. My ship is badass, right? I mean, it's not a hybrid, that ship. It runs on high-octane gas.
Sir, there's another Federation ship! Destroy it, too! Wait! The hull! Magnify!
The Narada was supposed to breathe and drip and ooze, and it's just part of its function as an organism in space, not literally an organism, but that sort of technology. And so we started with the notion of having all these cables and pipes that you see on the set. Those were supposed to be like the ligaments and tendons and nerves of the ship.
I love the fact that they'd gone with this whole notion of like exposed wiring and exposed everything, and it wasn't some kind of sleek spaceship where everything was concealed. I want one. You can't buy them, but I want one.
One of the things that was really clear right off the bat was, as scripted, there was no way we were going to be able to afford to build these as traditional stage sets. It was just like too big. This guy is, because of the mass of it, this is going to turn into a separate header piece. So that'll facilitate turning it over easier, and we'll have about a 28-foot run of this one. So from that point, I started thinking of the old days when I used to do Broadway shows. A wall coming in from here, a wall coming in from there, something flying in from there, and then you take the same elements and just rearrange them, and you've got a whole other set. I thought that might be the way to approach this, create anchor pieces that we just keep reconfiguring to create new spaces, and JJ totally embraced that notion right off the bat.
This is fantastic, you know? Cool. I love it.
The Narada is huge styrofoam sculpted pieces. We arranged, for example, like in the bridge configuration where there's that big cone that's going to have holograph projections coming out of it. That's how Nero runs his ship. That big cone, once we finished that set, came down, came apart, turned into walls, turned upside down, went to one side of the stage, then to another side of the stage. And we just reconfigure everything to create new spaces.
And we had to schedule the movie around it because at times it took overnight and at times it took a weekend to reconfigure all these big pieces so that they could become different sets.
So the scale of the ship is gigantic. It's so huge, especially in relation to the Enterprise. And part of the ability to do that comes from the way he designed these movable pieces, which was just genius.